everybody. Welcome to our Search the Scriptures study. We are on study number 7 today in the book of Judges. And this study covers chapter 7, verse number 1 through verse number 23. And we are going to attempt to answer two questions, over this section. The first one is this: what other principles, in addition to that expressly stated in chapter 7 and verse 2, appear in the choice of few out of many to be the instrument of God's victory? And in answering, observe the character defects of those rejected in the two tests. Secondly, consider the transformation in Gideon's attitude from spiritless acquiescence in bondage to a complete assurance of victory. And do you know such confident assurance in your battle against the forces of evil? So let's look at the book of Judges, chapter number 7, beginning with the very first verse. Early in the morning, Jerubbaal, that is Gideon, and his men camped at the spring of Harod. The camp of Midian was north of them in the valley near the hill of Moreh. The Lord said to Gideon, "You have too many men. I cannot deliver Midian into their hands, or Israel would boast against me. My own strength has saved me." Now announce to the army, anyone who trembles with fear may turn back and leave Mount Gilead. So 22,000 men left, while 10,000 remain. But the Lord said to Gideon, "There are still too many men. Take them down to the water, and I will thin them out for you there. And if I say, this one shall go with you, he shall go. But if I say, this one shall not go with you, he shall not go." So Gideon took the men down to the water. And there the Lord told him, "Separate those who lap the water with their tongues, as a dog laps from those who kneel down to drink." 300 of them drank from cupped hands, lapping like dogs. All the rest got down on their knees to drink. The Lord said to Gideon, "With the 300 men that lapped, I will save you and give the Midianites into your hands. Let all the others go home." So Gideon sent the rest of the Israelites home, but kept the 300 who took over the provisions and trumpets of the others. Now the camp of Midian lay below him in the valley. And during that night the Lord said to Gideon, "Get up and go down against the camp, because I am going to give it into your hands. If you are afraid to attack, go down to the camp with your servant Purah and listen to what they are saying. Afterward you will be encouraged to attack the camp." So he and Purah his servant went down to the outposts of the camp. The Midianites, the Amalekites, and all the other eastern peoples had settled in the valley thick as locusts, and our camels could no more be counted than the sand on the seashore. Gideon arrived just as a man was telling a friend his dream. "I had a dream," he was saying. "A round loaf of barley bread came tumbling into the Midianite camp. It struck the tent with such force that the tent overturned and collapsed." And his friend responded, "This can be nothing other than the sword of Gideon, son of Joash the Israelite. God has given the Midianites and the whole camp into his hands." When Gideon heard the dream and its interpretation, he bowed down and he worshipped. He returned to the camp of Israel, and he called out, "Get up! The Lord has given the Midianite camp into your hands." And dividing the 300 men into 3 companies, he placed trumpets and empty jars in the hands of all of them with torches inside. "Watch me," he told them. "Follow my lead. When I get to the edge of the camp, do exactly as I do. When I and all who are with me blow our trumpets, then from all around the camp blow yours and shout for the Lord and for Gideon." Gideon and the 100 men with him reached the edge of the camp at the beginning of the middle watch, just after they had changed the guard. And they blew their trumpets, and they broke the jars that were in their hands. And the 3 companies blew their trumpets and smashed the jars. Grasping the torches in their left hands and holding in their right hands the trumpets they were to blow, they shouted, "A sword for the Lord and for Gideon." And while each man held his position around the camp, all the Midianites ran, crying out as they fled. When the 300 trumpets sounded, the Lord caused the men throughout the camp to turn on each other with their swords. The army fled to Bethshittah toward Zerah as far as the border of Abel Meholah near Tabbath. Israelites from Naphtali, Asher, and Manasseh were called out, and they pursued the Midianites. Let's look at the questions again. What other principles, in addition to that expressly stated in chapter 7 and verse 2, appear in the choice of few out of many to be instrument of God's victory? And in answering, observe the character defects of those rejected in the 2 tests. Well, we can clearly see the character defect in the first test. They trembled with fear. But I don't think that to determine the second test as a test of character, I really think that that would be to miss the point. A lot of people, most people I have in the past, tried to use that second test as a character test to point to the idea that, hey, those that laughed like dogs were more prepared to go into battle than those that knelt down because they were on their feet and they were ready to go. But I think we need to be reminded here that God wasn't trying to win the battle in a natural way. He wanted to take credit, all the credit, for the victory. He wasn't looking for an elite group of Green Berets or Navy SEALs to take credit for a nighttime raid on the enemy. Okay? The purpose that he gave at the beginning was so that they would not take credit. He wanted to make their numbers smaller. And if that's the case, then why should the second test have anything to do with troop readiness or character? Let's face it, it doesn't take an elite force to smash pots and to blow trumpets. I know it's always been popular for us preachers to talk about these two tests as character tests, but it made me to miss the point. Even the fact that there were some that trembled, even all the battles up to this point that the Lord had won and victories had been obtained, they weren't without some loss in most cases on the part of the people of God. And warfare was a bloody thing. It was a horrible event. And of course there would have been a lot of men that trembled, and that doesn't necessarily mean they didn't believe God would give them faith into victory. So it may be kind of overstating that these are character tests. They may be, but it seems pretty clear that God wasn't looking for elite fighting forces. He didn't need them. All he needed was people to break torches. He could have got some women from the camp to have done that. So I think this question may overstep just a little bit. Second question, consider the transformation in Gideon's attitude from spiritless acquiescence in bondage to a complete assurance of victory. And do you know such confident assurance in your battle against the forces of evil? Well, overhearing two of the men, not his men, but two of the men of the Midianites speak of a dream of victory was definitely a boost of confidence for Gideon. It's always refreshing, I know for me, to hear other believers affirm the still small voice of God that was spoken into our heart, or it's affirming to hear someone in the community talk about what the church is doing or capable of doing. Overhearing just one conversation of assured victory outweighs all the other very public comments that people are all too willing to speak concerning your demise. I hope this study in Judges has been a blessing to you. God bless you and have a fantastic rest of your day.